Hello everybody, welcome back to Lozy PC, and welcome back to War in the Pacific play-by-email game versus Invictus. I hope everyone is doing well. So, last time we were carrying on with our invasion and our kind of taking of various spots, including Guam, and today we are in for, well, a bit of an interesting turn actually. A couple of things took place, as well as a little bit of a discovery from me as well, and something that I'll be taking forward in all my kind of campaigns that I do. So, to kind of give a bit of a situation log, I suppose, we are invading the Philippines at the moment, as well as pushing down in Malaya, and here we see one of our transport ships being shot at by a USS Dentmaker, one of the later ships, or sorry, the kind of more modern submarines of the US Navy, equipped with their more modern torpedoes, which, if you don't know, historically were very, very terrible. And this is reflected in the game. They do get better over a period of time, but it does take a while. So the older submarines are the ones that are much more effective. We also have an attempt at trying to take out an American destroyer near Pearl Harbor that we miss. And again, we see the American subs trying to cause some problems. Here we have I-171 being, somewhat attacked by the Americans, but getting away fairly okay there. So far, so good. We got our merging going on with some of the stuff that we moved around, and then we have this. So this is a transport ship, a transport fleet offloading kind of tanks and supplies on San Bernardino, and I was kind of like, okay, PT boats, interesting. Let's see how things go. So we got a few patrol boats here. It's fine. I'm reading this. Okay, our AP is being hit, but it's only machine gun. Reading the bottom, it says 50.5. So I speed it up, and then I start seeing things happening. I see ships starting to sink. I realize there's torpedoes in the water, and I go, oh, this isn't good. This attack by these PT boats is absolutely devastating. We don't really get a hit on any of them. And yeah, they sunk several of our ships outright. Some of them are extremely heavy damaged, and we will see that after this, they will sink themselves. We suffered some casualties, 159, which was worrying to say the least. But most of the ships, or most of the units, got off the ships and got onto the Philippines. So even though it's quite devastating, luckily in terms of troop numbers, it didn't cause us too many problems. But there is another element to this that is rather difficult and rather dangerous for us as the Japanese. So again, we're seeing attacks by American submarines that is not really doing too much damage. And again, this is because of these newer or more modern submarines with the newer torpedoes. They don't do particularly well. And there goes another transport ship, AP. And there goes another ship there as well, this time just a cargo ship. But, it's not ideal. We should be kind of steamrolling through various things and, steamrolling through the Pacific. So to suffer a defeat like this, or a shock attack like that, is a bit of a surprise, to say the least, but yeah. And now that we have a few more destroyers doing some patrols that we set up, given the attempts by US submarines to attack our offloading forces last time, we do get a couple of hits on one of those torpedoes, or at least get a little bit of damage on one of the submarines. I called it a torpedo there. It's a torpedo carrier. The 171, again, being pinged by destroyers, and we see that it does actually take on a little bit of water there. So I'm a little bit curious. I'm like, oh gosh, it's taken a hit. Let's see how bad it is. One of our submarines kind of follows the PT boats, interestingly enough. And again, American submarines trying to cause damage, and they will, which is the problem, but we are trying to deal with them as much as we can. According to that, Mavises have been trying to attack those PT boats. I don't know how successful they were, but yeah, this is kind of an interesting, it was an interesting night. I'm kind of, this is one of those things that doesn't necessarily weary me out, but it definitely shows that I'm playing with a more, experienced opponent. OCB, who I play with, his first time playing the Allies. He didn't do something like that. So I have to be on my guard, I think, a lot more with Invictus. Although I do have to be on my guard with OCB as well, because he is a damn good player in his own right. So we've got our bombing raids going through China, currently bombarding Hong Kong. Everything is fine so far. Again, Malaya, our sallies, again, all good. And we decided last time to kind of try to see if we could surprise Invictus with a bombing run. And that is the bombing run in Nanchang, because we have seen that Invictus has tried to put pressure on us and attack us in Nanchang. So I thought, okay, let's send some units to go do some bombing. He is also attacking us near Ishang, preparing, no doubt, before he attacks us outright across the river. So we do need to be careful of that. But yeah, we're getting attacked elsewhere. So we decided, instead of bombarding the Philippines for one turn, we'll try and get some sweeps going. Try and take out as many of the Warhawks as we could. And in that meantime, the bombers will take a day off and attack Nanchang. The morning, they didn't get around to doing it. We're currently doing our scouting missions, but here they come. And they are flying at a different altitude to normal. These are flying at about 8,000 feet, although you can see there they go up to 11,000 feet. And they do a significantly more amount of damage than any of my other bombing runs I have ever done. Normally they're at 20,000 feet. In those two bombing runs, there was over 200 casualties, which, I'm thinking, okay, that's pretty successful. That's a good number. We get some sallies coming in here. Again, 11,000 feet, 21 casualties. And I'm like, okay, this is good. And I think what we will do, obviously, we're going to target places that do have more significant AA. One of the reasons for attacking Nanchang with our bombers was because we know that Nanchang doesn't, or has very limited AA support, and therefore flying our bombers at a lower altitude, there's less chance of them being heavily damaged or destroyed. So it went pretty well, but if we want to see this be effective, we have to find out how good this is over places such as Clark Field, near Singapore, places where the Allies do actually have AA guns. Now, we do have to be careful, but it'll be interesting to see. So, we have a Japanese bombardment tank, our units bombarding in Nanchang, causing some casualties, and a bombardment of Hong Kong as well, using those big guns in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd independent heavy artillery battalions. We suffer some casualties, but so did the Allies, importantly more than us. So, a couple more days of those bombardments, get those heavy guns. And we have a deliberate attack up in the north here, trying to push units away and trying to cause as much damage as we can. And we can see here 1,500 Allied Chinese casualties. Good numbers for us. We get our units to attack San Bernardino to capture it so that we have it. Perfect. Excellent. More progress on the Philippines. And then we see the Allied deliberate attack in Nanchang. And I'm thinking, okay, we'll see how this ends up going. It's not the best of the Japanese army in China defending this point, but I'm feeling fairly confident over a river and with defensive fortifications. So I come down, and I'm surprised to see that actually we suffered more casualties than the Chinese. But given our success with the bombing run of over 200 odd casualties, if you add that up, then the Chinese did kind of suffer more casualties today than we did in the Battle of Nanchang. So might keep that up for a couple of days, weaken him down, let him kind of try to attack these fortifications and see how things go, especially if we can kind of really cause it to suffer, maybe get him to pull back with those units. It does mean we're diverting units away from Clark Field, but At the same time, we aren't being attacked by American bombers over Clark Field, so we also have Zeros ready to protect. Now, one thing I'm looking at is I was looking for the ship availability, because I wanted to see, when do we get more APs? And this is when I realize, oh, cack, we don't get a lot of APs at all. So I'm checking what our potential production in merchant shipyards are, as well as what the estimate is, and I decide, right, we're going to accelerate some APs to recover those losses. And luckily, we have a lot more transport ships, and yeah, again, some of these, the ones that are due soon, we will accelerate these as well. Try and get them out a little bit quicker if we can. And then I'm wondering why that one can't be accelerated, but I don't know. I still don't know. So if you do know, please let me know in the comments below. We have a look at APD because I'm just kind of curious about these kind of transport destroyers. And yeah, we have a few, but they don't come until later on in the game. And again, just kind of curious about submarines as well. And we get some soon. I'm like, are these ones that carry planes? Yeah, they carry a Glen. So again, just a little bit of curiosity about what's going on. So knowing that we have been relatively successful with the bombing, that's something we're going to look to do in a moment. But first, we need to check, and I'm looking for the damaged ships, where they're going, how they're doing. This is something for landing on Malaya, that's fine. And then I find the ships here. So these are currently heading to Vietnam, and I think that's a bit far. Can they go to somewhere else? I realize that Pescadores has a repair shipyard, and luckily the ship that needs repairing is less than 10,000 tons, so it would be able to repair there fairly easily. If we can at least get it to a situation where its flotation damage is lower, we could maybe send it back to Japan for a little bit more repair work. And again, I know this is only a transport ship, and therefore maybe we're being a little bit over zealous with trying to make sure that it is recovered and repaired, but again, we have only a limited number of ships. We want to keep as many of them as we can. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're going through our aircraft, and we are kind of limiting them down to those 8,000. We want to see how things go, and I'm thinking, okay, let's harass the allied troops that are kind of retreating from Kota Baru, heading towards Singapore, because any damage we can do on those troops, weakening them down, will be really, really useful. And again, this discovery of the 8,000 feet doing a lot more damage, with help from people in Discord, is really intriguing for me. And I'm really kind of interested to see how well this carries on going forward. Elsewhere, we're going to get some more bombers being used. These have been bombers that I noticed were flying extremely low over Alostar, and we have a few pilots missing. So instead of doing an airfield attack, we're going to get these guys onto ground attack. And then there's where I noticed that they've been kind of flying at 1,200 feet, which has been exceptionally low, considering Sallies are, frontline bombers. Sure, maybe they can fly a little lower, but 1,200 feet, that's almost like a ground attack aircraft, and that's not what Sallies are here for. So we are getting more and more of our aircraft, set up for this ground attack. I realized that they need some more pilots, so we grabbed 10 from replacement. Not ideal coming from replacement, but it's early game. We're not going to have too many pilots who are exceptionally skilled, so this is something where we will just grab whatever we can. Making sure we got some BABs, and I'm going to fly these recon planes as well, a little bit lower, just again, same idea. See if they can see anything more, see if there's any kind of increase in what they see. Do I think there will be? Probably not, but it's not, there's no harm in trying with something like this, because if we do get more information or we do find something out, then, that will all be fantastic and useful and good. So we will see how that goes forward. Now we're moving some units down from Singora, and we're using a little strat that I learned, was told by Evoken, which was for units that you don't want to leave, set them into strat mode. Because if you want to move a load of units at once, you can do in this game. You can just click on, the 114th Regiment, for example, give it a location to go, like we are here, and then set all to follow. And that means everybody in the hex would follow this unit. Now that's fine, but if you don't want to then go through and tell 3 or 4 units not to follow it, then that's a bit of a nightmare. So you go into this screen, tell them to go into strat move, and then you set them to however you want them after that, and they won't move from that position. So we've done that with the kind of construction and airfield crews, as well as an AA crew at Singora, and we're doing the same here at Kota Baru as well. Just kind of having a look at what this engineer regiment has, and I'm thinking, okay, we've got a Air Force company here, we've got a base force here, and we've got a couple of construction units as well, so we'll leave all this here. I'm like, well, if we've got all that, then the engineer regiment can go with the infantry. It can be combat engineers. So again, we've got a destination, we set all to follow, and as you'll be able to see in a second, the ones that are set to strat move won't follow. So it's all happy days that these are going to stay here and do the work that I need them to do at Kota Baru. As you can see there, they've gone into reserve, but they're not following. So, neat little trick. So thank you very much, Avoken, for telling us all about that trick. Meanwhile, I'm just kind of checking out the airfield responses, maybe thinking about getting some more planes down here. And I have a look at this crew of Nates, and I'm thinking, instead of Nates, could I give them Oscars, Ki-43s? Much better aircraft. And I kind of have a look through the selection of Oscars that we have. We got the 1C, the 1B, and eventually it will upgrade to the 2B. And I have a look at the difference between the 1B and the 1C, and see that the main difference is that the 1C is armed with 2 12.7mm machine guns, whereas the 1C is only armed with 1, and the other is a 7.7mm machine gun. So I'm kind of like, that's not that useful. We'll let the Oscars kind of upgrade and get maintained, but we're going to move some ANs out of training into some ground attack roles closer to Singapore. Again, trying to harass the units, and we'll set a few on rest, but the majority of them are going to be heading to bombard these retreating units away from Kota Baru. And yeah, this is what we're going to do for most places. Make sure everybody's got pilots. The Nates can carry on doing what they were doing, but we'll do it with the Sonyas. Set them to 8,000 feet, and we'll try and make sure that we do it for all level bombers. And then we'll just check the Babs. Yeah, we'll leave them. Lilies. Yeah, we see that they're at 8,000 feet. We'll leave the Tojos flying as they were. So we're like, okay, cool, that's them sorted. So it allows us then just to see how much more effective this could be if we have everything set at 8,000 feet, or around that at least, because given what we saw before, it did seem pretty, successful, particularly in the Battle of Nanchang. And if it is successful elsewhere, then, it would finally be the level of destruction and power that I've kind of been expecting from the Air Forces in this game. I mentioned before, and I mentioned, on stream, that I kind of felt that it almost wasn't powerful enough. The bombing raids would do very, very little damage at all. And I'm not expecting them to kill thousands of people in one turn, but I was at least expecting them to do more damage than they have been. This 8,000 feet height does seem to, however, maybe show that they are much more effective, and much closer to what I'm expecting. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Meanwhile, I am just checking on our forces moving around in northern China. The 6th Army has mostly turned up now for where it needs to be. Not all of it, but most of it is there. So we will be getting that kind of moving. And then I'm debating to move some ANs, and I have a look. Here's some more, attack aircraft in the center of China. Let's give these guys their 8,000 feet, and let's just kind of see where they're going to go. Just let them kind of target whatever they wish. And yeah, that is the kind of bombing stuff mostly done. Keeping an eye on a few other things moving around, particularly in regards to the joining up of a division in Japan. And then I realised, wait a minute, why is our transport ships that are supposedly going to pick up the units from Guam, the 144th Infantry Regiment, not going? Well, that's because I forgot to tell them to go to Guam. Meanwhile, we are kind of having a look at the situation in the southern Philippines. We've got a load of infantry here that are, ready and prepared to go. Moving north, so we go to click somewhere, it doesn't allow us to go there, so we click next to it, and we're going to move a load of units and only leave the construction units behind, the Naval Construction Battalion behind, to kind of build up the Port Legazpi. If that's how you pronounce it, probably not, and if it isn't and you're from there, I do apologise profusely. We do have some cruisers and destroyers, and this makes me, consider what we want to do in regards to our kind of protection of stuff. I'm kind of looking around and checking most of our transports at least have some sort of protection. And this is when I see, the one that we escorted last time with the escort with no anti-submarine, they seem to get back here okay. And then I'm just kind of having a look at, okay, what units could we move from Saigon? And I'm thinking, the Guard Battalion, what's the garrison of Saigon? Okay, it's 60. Let's have a look at the units and their assault value. Can I move the Guard Battalion? 40? Yeah, it's fine. And then I realize it's only about 600 men. And I'm like, well, never mind. It's not that significant. It's not like the Imperial Guards division. So we just disband that group as well and let them kind of go back into Saigon. We double checked that the 143rd Infantry Regiment is going to be joining up together. And we just kind of keep an eye on anything in Malaya. Stuff's all moving and heading to where it needs to be, which is good. So, that is hopefully most of the ground stuff sorted. I see that there's a random minefield out in near the Philippines and North Borneo. And then I kind of go to keep an eye on this little transport, or this task force that we had spotted. And then I have a bit of a think. I initially go to cover this task force, keeping them moving, the Kido Batai, kind of following where it was going. But then I realize we're getting too close to Johnston Island, and in turn getting too close to Pearl Harbor. It's only there. And, I'm a bit kind of, is this a trap? We check on 171 and we realise it's not really that damaged at all, despite the fact it said it was taking on some water, which is good. And then again, I kind of have a look around, see what has happened since we've had units moving around. It's been a few days now since the initial invasions on places like Makin and Tarawa. I can see we have Nauru Island and Ocean Island here that I kind of want to take. So I'm thinking about doing so. So I'm like, okay, let's load the 52nd or the 61st, and then realize that they can't even take them by themselves. I go to turn troop only, add a ship, there's no available ship. So we knock that idea on its head. We don't load the unit, and always make sure if you're playing War in the Pacific, if you don't want to load a unit, click back on the other screen and make sure that you take the unit out of loading, because otherwise they will continue to load and you'll miss a turn completely if you want to try and move these ships around. It's a bit of a nightmare, but it's something that we do have to consider. So what we realized, we've got a load of submarines here, and it's probably a good idea to put them on patrol. So we will set a few to the east coast, the west coast, not the east coast rather, the east coast of the map, but yes, the west coast of the United States. A couple outside Los Angeles, a couple or at least one outside San Francisco. But the main place in which we want to kind of get submarines is Australia. Australia is an interesting one because even though it has its own resources, it has its own industry, the one thing Australia doesn't have is fuel. Now, generally, what people do, and what I've done in my Americans campaign on stream, is cancel the heavy industry of Australia, shut it down. The reason being is, particularly in the early game, Australia doesn't have that much fuel. You'll be providing it with the fuel from elsewhere. And the way in which production works in this game is that heavy industry uses fuel and resources to make supplies. They make 2 supplies but use at least, I think it's 1 fuel for each unit of heavy industry. So they will be eating through your fuel. So say, for example, like in Australia, if you have, say, 1,300 heavy industry, that's 1,300 fuel every day you're using. Over 10 days, that's suddenly 13,000 tons of fuel. That's a lot. That's enough for, that's enough for a fleet of ships. So a lot of people turn down the heavy industry until they get the kind of supply lines up and running. The 2 main supply lines, one is coming from Los Angeles, or at least the west coast of the US. The other could be coming through from Cape Town, heading towards Perth. Now, that is slightly out of our range, I would say. I don't really want to put stuff there just yet. But once we start taking the Dutch East Indies, then we can definitely look to open a submarine port in one of those islands and try to cover it the best we can, cover the entrance into Perth. Because if we sink 1 or 2 tankers every couple of supply runs, if there's, say, 5 supply runs that comes down to Australia from the west coast, and out of those 5 there's 20 ships, if we sink 1 of those every time, it's really going to hurt. So we want to make sure that we've got submarines there available to do that. And it's also something we've got to be careful of, progressing forward. At the moment, yes, we were surprised by the PT boats this time, which is, a worry. But when we capture the Dutch East Indies, when we are moving that fuel, and mostly fuel, we don't really want to move the resources, the oil, we have to be careful. We have less tankers than the Americans, and they are very precious to us. So if we were to lose a tanker every time we did a run, we would be very quickly without any tankers at all, and that just isn't good for anybody. So we're kind of having a look around, seeing what ships we've got, because again, I want to move these Naval Guard units off Macon and Tarawa. I want to replace them with something like the base force that is in Roy Namur. So we're going to get a group together. I'm clicking around like random because I can't make my mind up what I'm doing. And I realise, right, we've got this amphibious force here. Let's turn that to transport. Let's maybe give it a couple more ships, but let's send it to Roy Namur to pick up some stuff. So we're going to have a look. I'm like, what do we give it? Let's give it. I'm all looking down. I'm seeing, there's a destroyer there, destroyer tender. We'll give it an AP and we'll give it a couple of transport ships. That way, it should be enough to move a base force. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually move this base force from Roy Namur. I think it's the 8th base force, if I can remember rightly, and we'll move that down to Tarawa, where they can build that up to be a decent airfield. And we can kind of dig in and whatnot and protect the Marianas Islands from Tarawa, and also extend our reach down. I keep an eye on our paratroopers, the Yokosuka 1st SNLF, which have been doing very well, and I'm like, well, we might as well drop the 3rd SNLF. And then I'm looking through, I'm like, okay, which one was it that does the drop? And I'm like, oh, this one could do it, yeah, this is fine. And then I'm looking, AF crew, AF unit, AF company, AF and I'm like, wait, what? And I'm getting very confused. And then I go, no, okay, can this one pick up troops? And I'm like, no. And I go, oh, there's a Betty bomber here who's been doing flying at night. Let's get it to join the bombing of Nanchang. and I go and make sure we knock it down to 8,000 feet, and we're ready to go there. And then I realise maybe it's not this base that is the one that's got the third SNLF, and there we go, it's this one with the Tinas. So troop transport, and then we go Yokosuka, third SNLF, and then we're going to drop it slightly further forward. Again, this is me taking a risk. This is something similar I did with OCB, and it went massively tits up. But I didn't do it as quickly as I did it with OCB, because this time we've got a load of troops nearby, including tanks. So we should, if there is no other unit there, be able to see what is going on relatively quickly. So it shouldn't be too much of a worry if there is a force around that is going to try and attack our paratroopers. We should be able to deal with that, no problem. Now I'm just kind of having a look at some stuff, trying to make sense of what is going on with our transports, and I'm thinking, why are these not moved yet? These ones that are going off to Malaya. And it's because of the expansion of the port. The port isn't big enough. I was going to cancel the airfield, but given it's 87%, it's not too much longer until it's built, and then we can focus on the port afterwards. And I'm going to undock the ships that are fully loaded and ready to go, just so we can dock the transport ship, or the transport fleet. So we will go to sending these ships actually off to their destinations. So one is Ternate, and then the other one is Mandano. And it was a debate I was thinking of having. Do I send these off yet, or do I wait until later? But we're going to go for it now. One thing it will allow us to do is it will give us a little channel to send units across towards Bali and Java, and allow us to move through relatively safely. And I say relatively, and that is an important word there, because we do not want to get caught by American destroyers or Dutch destroyers or British destroyers. It's something which has happened in the game with OCB. So, learn from mistakes. We have that advantage over the real Japanese forces, that we can learn from our mistakes, but we definitely do need to make sure that we're doing that, just so we don't make any serious issues or have any serious problems. Meanwhile, what we're going to do is send some task forces to escort these ships down, just in case there is something around Palawan and in the Zulu Sea, because it's something that we didn't, kind of clear out yet. So it's something that I'm a little bit nervous in regards to. So we'll make sure that that's clear, and we'll also set up the Ryu to do a bit of a patrol. Again, just making sure that everything is covered as best it can be. Elsewhere, we'll have a look at the signal intelligence. Nothing exciting. Have a look if there's anything interesting in the op report. And again, nothing really, just a couple of things being upgraded. But other than that, nothing too much. So we will leave it here. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for turn 7 on the 13th/14th of December. And yeah, we will be back very soon with the next turn. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye.